everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, we're going to take a look back at the Kiss Unmasked album and the whole era. We'll talk about the songs on the record, we'll talk about the album cover, the tour, and much more. We're also going to talk about what was going on in the music industry in 1980 and pop culture in general, and how Unmasked did or did not fit in. Lots to cover in this episode. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it, so let's jump in and let's get started. Hey, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, the first episode of 2024. I'd like to
Wow,
wish
2024?
you, I know, right? I'd like to wish you, my
Wow.
friend, a happy new year, as well as all the viewers and listeners. How you doing today, Bloody?
I'm doing well. Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. We're going to
I know.
start, I think we said on our last, we want to start doing look back or album, however you describe them. So what is it? It's, I'm looking at the calendar, January 5th, and we're sticking to our
Correct.
promise.
Well, you texted me yesterday. You're like, all right, let's do one. Let's do one tomorrow. I'm like, gee, okay. So
Pun intended.
yes.
Pun intended.
Ooh, I see what you did there. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm excited for this. I remember when Kiss was doing, their final shows, a few people contacted me, either private message, comments on Facebook, YouTube videos. Hey, are you and the Chemist still going to be doing, shows and podcasts next year? And especially, we like your look back episodes. I was like, don't worry, no, we're going to do some in 2024, and less than a week in, and here we are. We're doing our first one.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when you had texted me yesterday, or we were talking on the phone, I don't remember which one. I said to you, well, what album do you want to do? And I rattled off a bunch of them. You're like, I think we need to do Unmasked. I was like, done. Not a problem for me.
Yeah.
I broke out my it's a newer shirt, but
Oh, nice.
It's Unmasked themed. So I
Oh,
figured,
yeah. I see that now. See, I didn't you did, until you
I'm
pulled
too
back, I
close
saw
to
the
the camera.
top.
Right.
I thought it was rock and roll, but that's pretty cool.
No,
Where'd you get that short?
It's one of the ones from one of the times I joined the Kiss Army fan club online to get pre-sale tickets, and they send you a free t-shirt. So it's not a shirt that I frequently wear, but I figured it was appropriate for the occasion, even if you can't really see it too often.
Yeah. And I'm wearing my usual wear.
Of course, I would expect nothing different. 2024, you put out the exact same wardrobe.
Man in Black.
That's right.
Minus the movie.
I was going to say, where's Will Smith?
Yeah. Well.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, before we jump into the album, one of the things that I love to do, and I'm a little scared to do it this time with you, and I'll tell you why. So one of the things that we love to do when we do these is kind of put the viewers and the listeners and even ourselves back into the mindset of what was going on in 1980, right? And
yes,
I say I get nervous to do that with you this time because I think there's a lot of stuff from this time period that you get thoroughly thrown about. And I'm like, should I just skip this? Because this could end up being 3 hours on things that have nothing to do with Kiss.
Yeah. I go on my rant.
But you know what? I think
I promise not to wheel out any amplifiers this time.
I love when you do that stuff.
Yeah.
So, but when I was thinking about, like, I looked at like some of the most popular songs of that year, some of the popular albums, even TV shows and movies. I'm like, oh man, there's a Vincent Fest over here,
Salivate.
Yes.
Salivate. Yeah.
1980 was actually, to me, a great year for pop culture, just in general.
Minus John Lennon getting shot.
Yes, of course. Besides that, which obviously is a huge
and
thing.
Killed.
Yes, it's obviously a huge thing in the music industry. John Lennon dying. But with regards to TV shows, movies, music specifically, there's a lot of good stuff. And I know, the economy at the time wasn't doing so great and people were feeling down about that, but the entertainment side of it to me was glorious. I don't know how else to say it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I'll talk about some of the bigger rock albums of that time period in a moment, but I looked and I said, well, what were the top 10 songs of 1980? Just out of curiosity. So we kind of get a mindset of, where Kiss was going, because obviously
This is for the
Unmasked,
year.
yeah, for the year. And obviously Unmasked is a very different type of Kiss album. But I said, yeah, how does that compare to what else was on the radio that year? So I'm going to just rattle off the top 10 songs of the year.
Hmm.
And then we can just comment briefly on it. Blondie, Call Me,
Hmm.
Another Brick in the Wall, Pink Floyd, obviously. Olivia Newton-John, Magic. Happen to like that song quite a bit. I've been into that the last couple of years. Michael Jackson, Rock With You. Do That To Me One More Time. I know you love that
Do that to
song.
me one more time.
Thank you for the performance. Queen's Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Paul McCartney coming up. I'll be honest, I don't remember that one that much.
Mm,
I was
I
surprised that
do.
made a top 10 for the year. I'm like, wow.
I wouldn't have thought it was top 10 for the year, but uh, yeah, I do. I
Okay.
but did I don't. My dad had that record, and there was actually a 45 that came with the record with a live version of it, which was pretty cool.
Oh, okay. There
There
you
was like
go.
the studio version, and then there was like a live version.
Right, right. But we closing out the top 10. Funky Town,
Yeah.
Still
Won't you
Rock and
take
Roll.
me to?
Funky Town.
Won't you take me to?
Funky Town.
I love how you had to do the little hop. You're doing the Bruce Kulick,
Yeah, yeah, it's a modified Kulik.
a modified Kulick. They were just like, what is it? Term a phrase for coin a
Yeah,
phrase. What is it? Yeah,
it's the
it's
modified Kulik.
yeah.
But closing out the top 10, Still Rock and Roll to me, Billy Joel and The Rose by Bette Midler. And I have to just give a shout out here to Spinal Tap because this one has to go to 11. I can't leave this song out. The Pina Colada song was number 11 on the year. I was like, I
Remember when you
can't leave
had
that
that
one
one?
out. Yes, I still have it
Remember
in the,
walking in your room like you had the
I
headphone on
still
like you were
have it in the
DJing.
jukebox right behind me.
I was tired of my lady.
Been together too
Too
long.
long. And how
Like a
soon after
worn
that?
out record. I could go through the whole song.
How soon after that did you get "Shut Up, You Face" by Joe Dolce?
Probably right around the same time.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. So but just listening to that
People should
top
look that up though. If you have, a moment, just
yes,
look up a YouTube Joe Dolce "Shut Up, You Face."
indeed.
It
Indeed.
really portrays Italians in the most warmest of ways. No stereotypes there,
Not
and
at
that I'm saying
all.
that as an Italian
And it
of
was
Italian
Joe
descent.
Dolce, Italian man
Yeah, yeah,
himself,
yeah. Well,
so
if
it's
that was really his name,
that's true.
his name was Max Schwartz, and he was Jewish, and
I never
but
thought about that. That would be pretty
yeah,
funny if it was.
yeah.
But
Now I'm gonna look that up. He
yeah,
better
yeah.
be authentic. God damn it, or
He
I'm
better be
suing.
authentic. Yes, but I mean, I look at that top 10
What
list,
a
and that's
joyous list.
that
What
I
a
told
jo-
you that's a
and
joy.
it
I
just
mean,
again reminds me of how, again, call me old and crusty, how the music industry is just to me is just yeah,
and look, that doesn't even include songs that just missed that top 10, like Emotional Rescue, Keep on Loving You, REO Speedwagon, one of my favorites, Pop Music, Whip It by Devo. I mean, there's just a bunch of great
it's
songs at
it's
this
just
time.
incredible. Like everyone's a classic.
Yes.
It's not even like, all right, this accidentally became a hit and it was a dud. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Later on, like it's like, oh, man, is that amazing?
Yes,
You
yes.
know?
But I thought it was important to read off that top 10 because I mean, of course, you have like Pink Floyd in there. Here comes the plug. You have Pink Floyd, you have Queen and Paul McCartney, right?
Mm-hmm.
But most of these songs, like even Crazy Little Thing Called Love, is a great, I hate to say it, like a pop rock song. There's
Well,
nothing, that's hard rock about that.
so the interesting thing about 1980 to me was you were definitely crossing over where disco was kind of being pushed out. You
Yes.
know, of all those songs, quickly remember, other than Funky Town, which was kind of a disco tune.
Yep.
At that point we saw like, there was the whole disco sucks thing and the burning of the records, and the Bee Gees was kind of being shunned, and they decided, all right, we're just going to start writing music for other people, and they did the Islands in the Streams and other songs like they wrote for Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton, which was actually brilliant on their part. It's like, how
Yep.
do we still be relevant and still make still make tons of money. All right,
Yep.
we could write songs and publishing, but um, and so it was ushering, especially if you listen to like "Call Me," by Blondie, um, being influenced by Giorgio Moroder, who actually produced and wrote a lot of the stuff for Donna Summer. Donna Summer. Um, and uh and then this new wave thing was going to start coming in, around the same time, which is like what the Whip It is, like Devo was. So it was an interesting turn. And two, I think what the point maybe we're going to go to here is like, Kiss can be criticized, oh my God, they put out this pop record. But again, industry dictates a lot. Okay. Culture dictates a lot. Dynasty was a successful album. I mean, I Was Made for Loving You was a huge hit all around the world,
Especially
right?
internationally. Yep.
A huge hit, right? Why did they bring Vinnie Poncia back in? And Dynasty, whether you like the record or not, to me, I'll still say is a good record. It's got a lot of really well written songs. Whether you like that style of Kiss, that's an argument for another day. So on the heels of working with Vinny on the Dynasty record, coming from Peter Criss, that was and how that, I don't know if you watched any of that interview I had sent you on Vinny Poncia.
Not yet, no.
So it was interesting, just very quickly. I don't know if you know how Vinny Poncia kind of came in. So Vinny Poncia's manager was friends with Bill Aucoin. And I guess during the Dynasty, they were like doing like a sweepstakes, as Vinny said, like who was going to be the next producer. They knew they wanted to bring somebody in. And he met with Paul Stanley, and they hit it off really well. Vinny had written what's that? You Make Me Feel Like Dancing. He was a
Yep.
co-writer with that. He wrote a hit with Melissa Manchester. He had some hits as a songwriter. He also, as I never even knew this, he came from the pedigree of working with Phil Spector and under Phil Spector's wing. So you had this very experienced songwriter. You have the having being under the magic touch of Phil Spector, and could sing. It's a very interesting story about Vinny Poncia. Anyways, and so they hit it off right away. And the one thing I think, as an artist myself, when you're working with a producer, if he is also a songwriter, it's kind of more of a bond, which sometimes just say, yeah, do that, do this. I'm managing the budgets. I'm doing all that. Now we know, we've had it for years. I remember sitting in your room back in the 80s, listening to these Dynasty sessions. And he was talking in one of the interviews that they had this studio space and whatever in Long Island, where they would go for days of rehearsal and working out the parts. And we've heard that what I Was Made for Loving You, and so it's kind of interesting how the whole process worked, where I kind of heard like Eddie Kramer was kind of like less of a hands-on writing he was more of the, like,
Well,
I'm
I
going
don't
to get
think
you the
Eddie
sounds
Kramer
and stuff.
ever had a writing credit on a single Kiss song that I could think of.
For what
Whereas
I'm saying,
Poncia has 8 of 11 songs co-written on Unmasked.
right? So that's I don't know if it was in the Poncia interview that he mentioned about Eddie, not putting Eddie down, but Eddie's brilliant,
Of course, right.
But as a producer slash songwriter, you have more of a bond with the artist. You have so I think it was natural where the music industry was going, the songs that you listed. There really wasn't any really, heavy songs, or what turned out to start happening around 82, 83,
Right.
84, where
At
we've
least
talked
not on
before.
the pop, not on the pop charts. I did
Right.
want to mention though, because there is another side to this, and after we talk about the album, I want to talk about which road do you think Kiss should have gone down, right? So the top 40 charts were littered with great pop songs, pop rock songs, really.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is, I mean, AC/DC put out Back in Black in 1980. I mean, probably one of the greatest hard rock heavy metal albums of
Mm-hmm.
all time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Ozzy put out Blizzard of Oz, another freaking
Mm-hmm.
just monster album, right?
Mm-hmm.
Van Halen had Women and Children First that year,
Mm-hmm.
a great album. Judas Priest had British Steel. Motorhead had Ace of Spades, the Ace of Spades.
Mm-hmm.
Black Sabbath put out Heaven and Hell. I happen to love those albums with Dio. Iron Maiden put out their debut album. I think Def Leppard, if I'm not mistaken, On Through the Night was 1980, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So there's a bunch of great hard rock albums also that didn't hit the top 40 charts in terms of singles. But I mean, for crying out loud, Back in Black is one of the best-selling hard rock
Well,
albums of all time. Oh, best-selling albums, period, of all time.
yeah, yeah. As we know, those albums aged very well in the
Yes.
sense that when they first came out, they didn't have the initial impact
Yeah.
as they would, a couple of years later and now forever, so yeah, that's a really good point. The music industry, I think, still was, even though they were putting out those records, they I don't think it was really being pushed as such as, trying to make these chart busting, albums
I
or
think with all those
singles.
albums, the only one I think You Shook Me All Night Long from AC/DC, I know hit the charts that year.
Yeah,
Which again is not as hard rock as some of the other songs that AC/DC
yeah,
is known for. It definitely
yeah.
got more of a melodic and pop type sense to it. But I mean, songs from Van Halen like "And the Cradle Will Rock" and "Everybody Wants
Hmm.
Some," and those songs were
Hmm.
not hitting top 40, pop charts. As
Yeah.
great as they are, and
Yeah.
Living After Midnight and Breaking the Law from Judas Priest. Great songs, but again, there's not something you're going to hear in the top 10 on the radio and
Yeah.
the top
Yeah.
40 radio type stations. So,
Yeah. And so I think, and you get a taste of the dynasty thing of that big hit, right?
yeah.
So you go in and you start writing songs, and you know more than I do. In general, and I know we talked about this probably a while ago. In general, was Dynasty Tour considered to be a successful money-making tour?
Not really, because they originally were tending to do three, four, five shows per city, and
Right.
they had to cut that back. And in some places, they couldn't even sell out one show, let alone multiple shows. The tour was designed to stay in a city for multiple days, and it ended up not being the case. So, no, they did not do anywhere near as well as they were hoping.
Right. That's what I thought. I
Hmm.
remember.
Yeah.
So even more so, they might have been thinking, well, this record was successful. The record was successful. We know that.
Yep.
What do we do to continue on the success? Let's bring the same producer back and try to write. Let's see, where's the industry going. Let's, like you said, let's look at the top 10. Let's look at the top 20 songs. I mean, you look at this record, and any one of these songs, well, a lot of these songs could be on the charts, in my opinion, and
Yeah.
we'll get to that in our ratings. Um, so I kind of understand why they wrote this record, worked with Vinny, and it was recently that I saw that this was one of two records, least favorite records that Paul Stanley, that he felt that Kiss put out.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you
And
know,
before we even jump into the songs, which we will in a moment,
yeah.
um, even on TV at that time, think about it, Solid Gold was starting to become a popular TV show at that point,
Hmm.
right? Which was geared towards singles. And I know Kiss appeared on Solid Gold once The Elder came out, but they probably were also thinking, hey, we can hit those pop charts and hit TV, and MTV was
Hmm.
right around the corner. Only that wasn't around
Hmm.
yet, but
Hmm.
TV was even very influential at that time. There was nowhere near as many channels as there is today, and people were watching Three's Company and Dukes of Hazzard and the Jeffersons and all these shows, Happy Days, Charlie's Angels, all
Hmm.
these classic shows. And Solid Gold was now coming on as well, and people were watching that and seeing the dancing and the people performing. And I have to think Kiss is thinking, hey, we can get on that road maybe as well. And like you said, there's a lot of songs on this that could have been singles and done well. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's interesting to think a little bit. But what if Kiss would have gone back to the hard rock route and gone down that same line as like Ozzy with Blizzard of Oz and Iron Maiden's debut and AC/DC's album? What if they would have gone? Could they have had a more successful album if they went down that road? Obviously, we'll never know. I think in some ways, just the public was tired of Kiss at this point, and they could have put out a masterpiece. And it wouldn't have sold 10 million copies. It wouldn't have sold like Back in Black did. But I wonder if it would have been different if they went down that road.
I don't think so. And I'll just, without really jumping into ratings yet, I'll just mention one song, and that being Shandy.
Yep.
You know, if a song could have been, and it was a single, right, a hit off this record, you know, I don't know where it charted. You probably know because you know all such things. But
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I think it just barely scraped the top 40.
yeah, so you know that is kind of like somewhat of the perfect song to hit, a top 10 or top 20. And I don't know what harder song, whatever, being its Kiss, and they were
Right.
really not the media darlings or the radio station darlings. I think I Was Made for Loving You, like Beth, was such a departure for Kiss that like it was undeniable. Like, oh my God, this is like, and it's such well written songs. Like, how could you not have the song be played and be a
Agreed.
hit?
Yep. Yep.
I still kind of marvel whether you like it or not. It's your style. Every time I hear "Why I Was Made for Loving You," the studio version, I'm just like, wow, this song is such a well produced, recorded, sung. The Paul Stanley's vocal, especially on the bridge and the falsetto, and that is one of the greatest vocal performances by any vocalist.
Mhm.
I always say that um Ann Wilson's performance on like Alone or something like that, especially there's that middle part where she does that little that
Mhm.
scream part. It's
Yep.
like one of the greatest, vocals recorded to tape ever. And Paul's vocal on "I Was Made for Loving You" is fantastic. So I don't think so. I don't think
Yep.
that if they would have went in a harder direction, because to your point, look at the records that were out, and those were not hits. So
Right.
why would Kiss have been any different, knowing that DJs really didn't love them and they didn't have that kind of thing, and even more so at this time, an album that maybe wouldn't look like a comic book,
Mhm.
that certainly didn't help Kiss. I think we kind of still love it, but
Yep.
I remember a couple of friends of mine when the record came out, they were older than us, and they saw the record store like, all right, I'm too old to be buying a record that looks like a comic. Like now, this is too much.
I was going to
And
wait till after we did our ratings, but yeah, let's talk
yeah,
about the album cover then for a
yeah.
moment, because that is the first thing you see before you put the music even on. So,
And just rewind,
yeah.
just so I it's not very detailed, but I remember specifically when, because it always seemed like you had that connection with the record store, and you would
Hmm.
get things a day or two early. And I remember when you had the opportunity, and we knew what the name of the album was,
Yep.
and you went to go get the record, and I was excited to see, like, oh man, so we're gonna see them without makeup, like,
That's what I was going to ask you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you got it, and I came to your house, and I was like, oh, okay,
Right.
and we were kind of like a little disappointed, even though it was kind of obvious they weren't going to have an album cover without it. But
Right.
we're 10 years old, right? I
But I
mean,
remember even opening up the record and thinking that there could be pictures inside of
yeah,
them without makeup. And I
yeah.
remember opening up the poster, being like, "All right, this is going to be it." And then
And you
it's
said
just,
gasp.
right, and it's I said,
Yeah,
and it's just that one panel from the front cover, which I happen to love the front cover of this album. Yes,
yeah,
I
it's
know it's
awesome.
geared towards more kids, and I was a kid at that time. I was 10,
Yeah,
not
that's why
even
we
10
still
years
love
old
it.
when the album came out. Just
Yeah,
turning 10 in a few months. But I still love it to this day. Yeah, I understand why maybe some people don't. Some people have criticized the last panel at the end where it says, "I still say they stink," and like,
yeah,
how could a Kiss album have on the cover that they stink?
right.
To me, the whole thing is tongue in cheek with the reporter. I think it's hilarious. I love it. I still think it's cool. I've seen the alternate version of the cover that they originally were just mocking up, and I think the way they ended this was great. It's fun, and that's
Yeah,
I've always said for so many episodes that we do this. Music's about having fun, and
absolutely,
to me,
absolutely.
the whole album cover is fun. So
I agree. I
maybe I would
agree.
have felt different if I was 20 at the time. I would have been like, "There's nothing fun about this." But
Mm-hmm.
and I wonder if Kiss put out an album today, and that was the album cover. If as adults in our 50s, would we be like, "What the hell are they thinking here?" But
Mm,
at the time, I thought it was fun, and I still stand by that.
I feel the same way.
Now it's funny because you mentioned for obvious reasons Poncia involved in the album here. So he was originally involved with Peter Criss's 78 solo album, right? That's the first thing he did with Kiss. And it's so ironic that here it is, he has that Peter Criss connection. And then the albums he works on with Kiss, Dynasty and Unmasked, Peter Criss is barely involved in Dynasty and not involved with Unmasked at all, which I always
Mm-hmm.
found that really ironic. Do you remember leading up to the album coming out? Do you remember knowing or hearing that Peter was not going to be on the album?
I think I remember. there being rumors about him not being in the band anymore.
Mhm.
Again, very different time,
Right.
no internet. I just kind of remember wondering, then seeing the record and seeing him pictured on there.
Yep.
Did he play on the record? Well, what's going on here?
Yep.
Listening to the record, trying to, at a 10-year-old
Right.
musical mind, decode, is that him?
Right.
Because I don't even know, be quite honest, at that time, if I knew that he didn't play on Dynasty,
Right. I don't know if how much we knew
because,
that. Yep.
because the
Again, we're
videos
putting
had
our
him
minds into
in.
1979, 1980, not
Right,
later on when it
right,
was a very, even it's obvious if you listen to a song like Torpedo Girl, that's clearly double bass in there. That's not Peter playing that song.
right,
It's
right.
crystal clear.
Exactly.
But as a 10 year
Exactly.
old, you're not in
You
touch with
didn't
that
know.
type of stuff.
You didn't know. Yeah. I just remember there being rumors. I was like worried because he was my favorite member. I didn't want him not to be in the band anymore. It kind of was an interesting kind of time with the
Mhm.
limited access that we had for information.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I
No,
mean, I don't even think back then there was no Entertainment Tonight, there was no Access Hollywoods, there was no, I don't, like, how did you, other than like, Cream Magazine or
I want to say I
Hit
found out
Parader.
about Peter not being in the band officially um, from Kids Are People too,
Yeah.
which I think broadcasted in September. So at that point, they're already touring overseas. They already did the one show in New York City in July of 1980 with Eric Carr. And I still didn't know because, like you said, or maybe it was like 16 magazine or something like that. That was before Kids Are People too. I don't know, but might have been one of those magazines that said new Kiss drummer or something like that. But it was definitely after the fact.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is, as people may or may not know, and I'm sure a lot of Kiss fans do know, is that Eric Carr's um I guess demo packet or whatever of him playing or whatever was him singing Shandy.
Yep.
So the record was obviously out,
Yep.
and he included that in with his musical, I don't know what you call resume, whatever
Yeah.
he provided. Just
So true.
you can find that on YouTube.
Absolutely. So should we jump in though to the album itself and go song by song like we
Yeah,
like to do?
yeah. This is a interesting. This was a little hard to rate because
Well,
you know,
before we
I
start your ratings, do you have your spreadsheet open so that you can keep track of the scores for us like you
I'm
always
gonna
do?
pretend you didn't even ask me that damn
Okay.
question.
uh, okay. For those
This is
who are
my
only
first
listening,
rodeo.
for those who are listening and not watching, you would see I think we're up to about 30 or 40 eye rolls right now. There you go, 41, 42. There we go. All right. So let's
Yeah.
jump in now and talk this song. So, all right. The first song is That You?
So let's just preface, because this is always tough. And when I do these ratings, because then I start thinking, well, how did I rate Love Gun? Well, how did I, almost like I have to now do this as its own entity, and its own, like, I don't, because I've done this before. Well, how could you give this song when you gave, Deuce a, whatever,
Yep.
Deuce is a 10. How could you give this song a 9.5? You could say,
Right.
well, this is, I'm kind of on the fence with this. I'm just
Okay.
gonna rate them from 1 to 10. I'm just gonna say that, and it's very, like, I could say the number now and an hour from now change it. I feel with this record. That's the one thing I was, you know, we talked about it yesterday. I did my scores quickly this morning, but tomorrow I could feel differently, and or when we discuss, I could start changing numbers. So I just want
And
to
for
put that
those
as
who
a,
maybe haven't watched some of our episodes before, we rate on a scale, I'll say 0 to 10.
yeah.
10 being, I'll say perfect, 5 being middle of the road average, right? So, because so many
Mm-hmm.
people rate things nines, tens, without even, so 5 is average. There's nothing wrong with a 5, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
half the songs that are in the world are better than this, half them are worse, right? So that's our starting point, 5 being average. We usually
Mm-hmm.
say when you get into the eights and nines, you're starting to talk about upper echelon type songs, and sevens are really solid songs, and then you have your pluses and minuses above that.
Mm-hmm.
So just to kind of get the viewers and listeners into our thought process of how we rate these songs, because at the end I'm going to tell people to give us what they think their ratings are, and I'd like people to kind of keep that type of scale in mind. Otherwise, I just find that most people say, oh, it's a 10, it's a 10, because they like it. But to your point, if is that you as a 10? And I'm not suggesting that you're about to say it is, right? My thing would always be, well, is it as good as Black Diamond or Deuce? And some people might say yes, and there's nothing wrong with
Mm,
that. Nothing wrong.
mm,
There's going to be a couple of songs here that I rate a little bit high, and people probably be like, "Are you freaking nuts?" And you probably know
mm.
which songs those will be already.
Yeah,
But with that in mind, do you want to go first with "Is That You"?
sure. Why not?
Okay.
And I always say once you hit seven, you're starting to go into the upper echelon.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the okay. So is that you? I'm going to give my rating also based on influence of songwriting. We know that this now is a cover. They did not write the song. It's a
Which is
cover. So,
amazing that they started the album with a cover tune.
right. So
No, I mean nobody
I'm
knew the song, obviously, but
right. So for me personally, the way I do it, I'm going to shave a couple of points off just for that. I know
wow.
it's on the record, but
Mhm.
they didn't write the song. They covered the song, you
If
know?
one day somebody covers one of your songs, I'm going to say that to you.
That's fair enough. If one day somebody covers my songs, I'm going to be thrilled. So
There you go.
say
Okay.
whatever you want.
Fair
Have
enough.
at it.
Touche.
So I'm going to give Is That You a 6.5
Okay.
rating.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's fair. Um, yeah, I think it's a great, catchy song. It's actually a good album opener to me. I try to think of,
Mm-hmm.
I just said I can't believe they opened the album with a cover. But if you look at the 11 songs on the album, I'm not sure that there's a song that's better suited to open the album than Is That
Mm-hmm.
You, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
it's the proper song. And, for years I didn't know it was even a cover tune. I knew it was not written by Kiss, but I figured it was written for Kiss. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
realize it was a song that somebody had written and then submitted. Um, yeah, I gave it a 7. I think it's a good, catchy song. It's a good opening to the album. I saw
Mm-hmm.
them do it on the cruise, I guess, 4 or 5 years ago, which I'll talk about that separately in a little bit. But it's a fun song.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun
Absolutely.
song. Nice opener.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, next up is the single, the lead single from the album, Shandy. I guess
Mm-hmm.
I'll go first. I've absolutely loved this song for
Mm-hmm.
decades,
Mm-hmm.
even going back to the
Takara.
80s. Even going back to the 80s, if I was putting a list together of like my top 10 or top 20 Kiss songs, Shandy was always on that list.
Mm-hmm.
In recent years, I have slightly come off of the love of the song. And when I say that, I still love it. I just, I used to think it was one of the greatest pop songs of all time. Now I just think it's great. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually gave it a rating of a 9.2.
Okay. I'm
Probably a
putting it
couple of
as
years
well.
ago I would have said a 10, but I'll go
Yeah.
with a 9.2.
Nice. Well, let me comment that this was a song that I remember being in Long Island in 1980 with my cousin, going to Genevieve's, and at that time they had 45s and singles, and we
Yes.
picked out this song, and we must have listened to this on my grandparents, the old stereos that was like a piece of furniture. We lifted up the thing, and
Mhm.
it was awesome. It brings back great memories of that summer. Um, love Paul Stanley's guitar tone opening up the record. Yes, that is Paul Stanley doing those leads in the
Paul Stanley
intro.
was the only Kiss member on this song.
Right. Um, well, not the drums. Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's Kiss
Yeah.
member.
Anton Fig.
Right. Kiss member. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I thought you were saying like he played everything, but
No,
yes,
no, no.
right. So, yeah, I love this song. I'm giving it a 9.
Okay, we're both right there. I
Mm-hmm.
remember you were talking about, hearing this song. I remember as a kid, right by our house, there was like a luncheonette type place, and they
Yeah, I
had like
remember
egg creams and things like that. And they had a jukebox in there, and I used to go there
between Bay
sometimes.
13th and Bay 14th.
Yeah, I used to go there sometimes. I'd get my chocolate egg cream, and they had the jukebox, and I would play this song on there. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of my memories of this album first coming out. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I love the song so much. But I
Mm-hmm.
would just play the song on the jukebox probably like 10,000 times. They probably had 10,000 spins on the record, and all 10,000 were me only. But that's neither
Yeah,
here nor
yeah,
there.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's a great. It's you said before like it would have been like this could have been their big hit from the album.
Absolutely.
It's the right single to release. I know, and Paul has said that it's, I guess, influenced, at least lyrically, I guess, off of a Bruce Springsteen song. I've never seen a connection, right? There's a Bruce
Mm,
Springsteen song like Sandy, I think, or whatever. I hear that, I think of Grease. I don't think of Shandy, but okay. That's why I don't write
yeah.
songs for a living, I guess. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's just a great song.
I agree.
In fact, I can't believe that they started off the tour originally. Um, think they weren't playing this when they first
Mm,
started touring. They were doing "You're All That I Want" instead, and I'm like, how were they not doing this song at first when it was the lead single from the album?
mm,
It's just a weird
yeah,
thing, but I guess by the
yeah,
time they started the tour, the single had not succeeded, so they felt not a need to play it. But okay,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Interesting. So, all right. Next up is the first Ace song on the album. Talk to Me. You want to go first here, buddy?
Which
Talk to
should
me
be
about this.
which should be noted that it's not a Gene song. They actually put an A song before Gene song.
That is good for the
Just something
second
to
album in
note.
a row, right? Because they did that on Dynasty with 2000 Man being the second
Hmm.
song. So
Yeah,
clearly Ace was taking a more predominant role in singing and songwriting during this time.
yeah. I think "Talk to Me" is a very well written, great Ace song. Ace songs to me are never going to be like Paul songs. You know what I mean? And the quality of song. I know he had a great solo album, and there's some great Ace songs, but it's really hard to match up some of the Paul's work. Let's
Mhm.
face facts, in my humble opinion. But this is a I think this is an excellent third song, and when you hear the album, it kind of falls into place nicely.
Yep.
I give this a 6.3 on the scale.
6.3. Okay,
Yes,
very good.
6.3.
It's funny because when I first got this album, we're talking about memories. I
Yeah,
remember my parents driving home one day and we're driving down Bath Avenue, which was right by my house. And
yeah.
there's somebody in an apartment over there playing the Unmasked album, and they were up to talk to me, blasting. I mean, blasting. They must have been like on the third or fourth floor. We're sitting at a red light on the corner, and I just remember singing along to them
Not sweet.
in their house playing this album. Um, it's weird, like how these memories of being 9, 10 years old could stay with you. But whenever I hear this song, I always think back to being a kid sitting in the car and hearing somebody else in my neighborhood blasting this song
Mm,
on their record player. So it's
yeah.
just kind of a funny story.
Mm.
I think it's a good Ace Frehley song. I don't think it's great. This is no Rip It Out or Shock Me or anything like that.
Fair
I
point. Fair
find
point.
the chorus to get a little monotonous at times.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Why don't you talk to me? Come on, talk to me. I'm like, all right, how many times are you going to say talk to me? We get it.
Yeah.
But saying that, it's still a good song. I've seen Ace do it live a couple of times during his solo shows. I wish you'd include it in the set more often because it is a fun song. I'm slightly lower than you. I gave it a nice round 6.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Ah,
Naked City, the first Gene song on the album, co-written with Bob. I see you already shaking your head. I'm going to go first here
well,
because no, let me go first here so that I get the
yeah.
abuse here because I think Kiss fans love this song,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I don't get it. I've
Mm,
never got that love. Now, maybe you're going to be like, this is a 10. I don't know. That's why I said I wanted to go first, right? I just never understood the love for this song. So go ahead,
mm.
Kiss fans. You could abuse me. I don't care. That's fine. Everybody's entitled to an opinion. To me, this song is very, very average. Very average. 5. A
Okay.
nice average 5. It's not bad. It's a little bit of a throwaway to me. I hate to say that because most people I think say that this is their favorite song on the album. It's one of my least favorites.
Okay. Fair enough.
Now go ahead. Give me either
I'll
your
tell you
rebuttal or
why.
agreement.
I'll tell you why I like this song.
Go ahead.
It's very different stylistically from Kiss. I think
Yeah.
they've done before. I love the bass tone, first of all, on this record is great. They will obviously get the
And
little
it's good bass in
technical.
this song.
Yeah. They were using some sort of active bass. I know what the sound of an active bass. So wish I knew what they were using. Um, but I love the bass line, the damn, 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 damn. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
kind of almost like a police kind of thing, feel.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
no
I
thought about
think
that. That's true.
I think Gene's vocal is great. I love the mood of the song. It does bring back some fond memories of as a child with my cousins, which I can't get into that story because people will never look at me the same. Um,
Okay.
now they're gonna be like, "Wow, what happened?"
Yeah,
But if my
really.
brother watches this, he'll know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Um, but so I mean, look, I didn't go that much higher than you. I gave it a 6,
Okay.
because I think it's a bit I like a point below above average. If we're saying
Mm-hmm.
5, is it's just for the writing, the style of it. It's just I like it. It's a fun song to listen to.
Yeah.
You know,
Never did it for me.
yeah,
I could agree that it's written well, but just never connected with me.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe except for the bass.
Yeah.
Storing some of the verses. I like some of the bass playing, but
Yeah.
yeah. All right, so you're a six, I'm a five. A little bit of difference, but
Hmm.
not tremendous difference. Although at one point I actually thought about giving it a four and a half. So
Okay. Okay.
but I said no, I'll give it a five. It is well written. It's just very average to me. All right.
Okay.
What makes the world go round? You want to go first, buddy?
Again, I think it's a great pop song, great catchy chorus. I love the drums in the chorus. What Anton Fig is playing there, the ride, and he's doing a little hi-hat thing there, which is kind of really cool. It's almost like when Paul's on track to write a catchy chorus, it's really hard to stop him.
Yep.
Even at his worst, it's usually great,
Yep.
you
Agreed.
know.
Except for
Um,
Radar for Love, but okay.
exactly, and Bang Bang You.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I you see, these is what I was saying. Like I gave this a 6.1. I gave it a notch above Naked City,
Yeah.
and you'll
Uh-huh.
see as you start looking at it. But yeah, I think it's it's not seven, it's not upper echelon
Right.
there, but it's better than average. But I
Yeah.
give it a 6.1. I think
Yeah.
it's a very well written pop song.
I think you and I are kind of thinking alike on this. I
Oh, what
think
did you
of
give Naked City again? I'm sorry.
five. Five. Yeah. Um, I think this is a good song, catchy. I can't help when my wife doesn't watch any of these podcasts, so she's never going to hear me say this, but I can't help but think of every time I hear this song, her and her friend Lisa had this whole dance that they would do at 10 years old when the album came out to this song. And if it
Mm,
comes on, she mentioned anytime I hear the song, she's like, oh, have I ever told you that me, Lisa and I had a dance? I'm like, oh, we
yeah.
knew each other for like 35 years. Yes, I know you had a dance for this song. But and then with her and her friend are together, they do the dance. It's hilarious actually. But they were
Yeah.
kids, and then that's their connection to it. But every time I hear this song, I think of that. And then I also think of my biggest podcast regret that I've ever had. And that's when I had Paul Stanley on, and I was asking him about Soul Station and how the connection to Kiss with some of those Soul Station songs. And he highlights Shout Out Loud and the call of response. And then he highlights I Was Made for Loving You and I Standing in the Shadows of Love and how it's similar.
Mm,
And then he's like, what makes the world go round also, was kind of based off of that. And I wish I asked him to sing just a bar or two of the song to show me
yeah.
that connection because I've never heard him, they've never performed this song. There's
Hmm.
never been anything that. And I'm like, damn, he sang little parts of the other two songs that he sings in concert all the time. I should have asked him to sing a part of What Makes the World Go Round. So there you go. I don't know if I've ever said that publicly. That's my big
Hmm.
podcast regret. It would have been nice to hear Paul sing a line or two
Hmm.
from this song. It's a good song. It's a little bit above average. I think, like you said, I gave it a five and a half.
Okay. Cool.
So that concludes
Ah.
the first side of the album.
Yeah.
Which, like you said, it's interesting. There's one Gene song, one Ace song, three Paul songs. So it's a
Hmm.
very Paul heavy album, at least on
Hmm.
side A. We'll talk a little bit about Paul's recent comments about the album, but let's save that till the end. Um, and then I'll kind of bring up something else that Paul said in the past about the album as well. But let's flip the album over to side B right now, and I'm going to let you go first because you already know, and anybody who watches this show knows what I'm going to say about the song. And if you don't, shame on you. That means you're not watching enough of our episodes. But
Yeah.
go ahead, buddy. I'll let you go first tomorrow.
Well, okay. And then I'm going to say this, based on the score, like I gave it a 10. I think it's a perfect song, best song on the record. Do I think it's as good as Deuce, which I would give a 10? No, I'm not going to say that. But however, I'm not doing that kind of comparison for this record. Okay. I'm doing it for the entity of the record, whether I think the song is a 0 or 10.
So if you were
And
comparing it to Deuce, just as your perfect tense song there, how much better or worse of a song do you think
then
tomorrow
it probably
is?
goes to like an 8.
Okay,
You know what
just
I'm
out of
saying? I'm saying
curiosity.
kind of like that. Yeah, something like that. Quickly off the top of my head.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
But yeah, this is a great song. This clearly I've played this with people like, how does this song was never a hit?
Mhm.
I'm like, not only wasn't it a hit, was it even a single?
They did release it as a single in one or two European countries, I think. Yes.
Exactly my point. Right?
We were talking how Shandy was the perfect lead single, and in a lot of ways it was, but I've also thought sometimes, well, maybe Tomorrow should have been the lead single.
Yeah.
Thinking
Yeah.
back to those songs that I was rattling off in the top 10 for the year, Call Me, Magic by Olivia Newton-John, Do That to Me One More Time, Crazy Little Thing
Do
Called Love.
that to me once. I'm
I knew
sorry.
you were gonna say. I could see a song like Tomorrow stylistically
Course.
is similar. I'm not saying that Tomorrow is better than Crazy Little Thing Called Love, but stylistically, it's that same pop rock upbeat type of song. Yeah, I think maybe this should have been the lead single from the album, just my opinion. That's why I started with that,
Mm,
in the top of this conversation, talking about those singles,
yeah.
because, to me, you look at this whole album and these songs fit with what was popular at that time,
Absolutely.
Was there more that you wanted to say on Tomorrow before I give my obvious rating?
Um, oh well, it will appear on the Kiss tribute record that I will be putting out with my friend Al. It,
Yes,
so
very good.
just a plug for
Yes,
that.
indeed. Indeed. I look forward to that. Well, like I said, anybody who knows me, probably since the 80s, this is another song that I have absolutely always loved. I'll just put it right out there. I'm giving this a 10, but I'm giving it a
Hmm
real 10. I put this right up there with one of the greatest pop songs of all time. You texted me a few weeks ago, summer of '69, you thought might be the greatest pop rock song ever written. Can't argue that. I love that song. Purple Rain is great. And there's a couple of great. I know this song is nowhere near as popular as those, but to me, it's every ounce as good. I asked you before comparing
Mm,
Tomorrow to Deuce. If I compare Tomorrow and Deuce to each other, they're both tens to me, and they're different types of songs.
hmm
One's a hard rock song, one's a pop song, but man, Tomorrow is such a freaking perfect song to me.
mm,
Um, every year when I would go on the cruise, for a while, they were asking cruises to vote on what song you want Kiss to perform on the cruise. And every single year, I made my entire family include this in their vote.
mm,
And I know many cruises were putting it on there also. One year when I was at one of these private Paul shows that, if you buy a guitar, he was doing a private acoustic songs, he was taking requests from the crowd. So I started yelling out like every 2 minutes, Tomorrow, Tomorrow, Tomorrow. I want to play Tomorrow. But finally he acknowledges me. He goes, yeah, maybe tomorrow we'll do that one. I'm like,
mm,
God
yeah. Yeah.
damn. One of the cruises, because again, every year I prayed that they would do this song. One of the cruises, Paul's like, so we're gonna do a song from Unmasked now. Here's a song we've never played live before. And I freaking start salivating. I'm like, all right, my mind is racing instantly. All right, they've done Is That You? They've done Shandy. They've done Talk to Me. They've done All That I Want. I start thinking about all the songs they have done. I'm like, all right, I got a 50-50 shot right now of this being Tomorrow. And then he's like, all right, here it is. Is That You? I'm like, you did that song for an entire tour. What the hell are you talking? I was
Yeah.
so disappointed. I was happy they did that song because I like it,
Right.
like I said. But I was getting so excited. Like, here it is, the moment the many cruises have been waiting for.
Mm,
I did find out. I have to give a little plug here. I don't know if you know about this. Let's see if this will show up. The book is Mass Hysteria, World Tour 1980-1981, written by Julian Gill. And it goes day by day of basically the entire year 1980, a little bit 79, a little bit 81, about the whole Unmasked album, Unmasked tour,
mm,
and all of that. So it's really a great day by day look of Kiss during this time. And in the book, Julian mentions that they actually lip sang Tomorrow on a TV show in, I think it was Europe in 1980. And it's not performing it live. And I'm like, oh, that's the closest I'm ever going to get. That
mm.
video has never surfaced, and Kiss fans have never seen it. So my plea to anybody watching this, especially my friends overseas, if you have this on video, you have to let me know.
Yeah.
I'm willing to pay. This is I'm willing to pay. This song is maybe one of my top 50 songs any band all time. That's how much I love this song. So any video footage I could have that I would see Kiss perform this, even if it's a lip sync, that would be very, very high on my list because obviously they never did it in concert. So
hmm hmm
everybody you knew I was giving this a 10 coming in,
Of course.
So I absolutely love this song.
And as I thought it would be scored. Oh, did you give it the number? Did you actually
I think
officially?
I said 10 about 10 times. Are you paying
Of
attention at all, or do you just completely
course.
tune me out when I talk?
Oh, that's a little harsh.
I
That's a
know
little
it is.
harsh.
Yes, this is an easy 10.
Yeah.
Easy. And like I said, this is a 10. I compare it to Deuce. They're both 10s. This is a strong 10. This is a 10 plus.
So what is
This
the
one could
score you
go to
giving it?
11.
Oh, wow. I'll see.
No, this is it. Since we said only 0 to 10, I'm going to say 10. But if we were given higher, I would go higher.
Wow. Okay. Good. Good.
Yes. All righty. Enough of my love for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Two sides of the can. You want to go
Yeah.
first?
Sure. I mean, I think this is an average song. It's,
Okay.
it's got a catchy chorus, good vocal by Ace. What's interesting about this record is some of the bridge and solo parts, how they tried to be a bit different. I
Yep.
kind of like that part of the record too. But yeah, I give this a 5.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. I think all of Ace's songs on this album are good, not great.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
tried to look at them and compare them to each other a little bit. I happen to
Yeah.
actually like Two Sides of the Coin better than Talk to Me. I was saying before how the chorus is a little bit repetitive in Talk to Me.
Hmm.
On Kiss Cruise 8, Ace really did this he was on the cruise with Kiss and he did this in his solo show. And I was like, oh, it's cool to kind of hear this song live. I gave it a 6.3. I think it's certainly not an upper echelon song, but I thought it was just a smidge better than Talk to Me, in my opinion. So
Smidge.
a
Hmm.
smidge. So I gave it a
Smidge.
6.3.
Okay. Okay.
Right. Next up, She's So European. Do you want me to go first on this one?
Go
Okay.
first.
No, this is a song when I was younger, it was probably my least favorite song on the album. I don't know why, I just never really liked it. And then I saw Gene do it in concert in 2019. I was like, man, that's a good song. I need to go revisit that. And when I revisit, I'm like, it is. It's a good, catchy song. It's not necessarily the style of song Gene is known to write. It is a
Hmm.
poppy Gene song, but and I guess the timing on the chorus, and you as a musician, other people watching and listening as musicians would know this, but I remember when Kiss did it on the cruise, um, Gene kept coming in like the last line of the chorus. He kept coming in at the wrong time. Like she's so I found out today, like that. He always come in at the wrong time, and Stanley would just look around at everybody like roll his eyes, and at the end, Paul Stanley mouthed like, "Wow."
Yeah, I remember seeing that
Yeah,
footage.
yeah, but
I do remember seeing that.
it was fun. It didn't have to be perfect. That's part of the fun of seeing Kiss doing these types of songs. Yeah, I'll give
Hmm.
this the same as Two Sides. I'll give this a 6.3 as well.
Yeah, I don't see it as such. I'd see this as slightly below
Okay.
average. I give this a 4.5. You
Okay.
know,
There you go.
yeah, not a bad song, but I don't know. It just doesn't resonate with me. It's kind
Mhm.
of chorus is okay. I like the fact that you clearly hear ease in the song. Like, Kiss obviously made it, they made it obvious, even more so with the next song, like about with keyboards being on the record.
Mhm.
So, and I like that part of it, I'll be honest,
Uh-huh.
because, the way I'm retro man, keyboards or whatever, doesn't matter. But I think it's a 4.5. So you gave this a what?
6.3. A big difference there.
Pretty brave on that score.
Brave.
Pretty brave on that one, my friend.
I think having seen Gene do it and then Kiss do it, it's given me a greater appreciation. And it's to me, it's a fun song.
So, so what do you get? Burn, bitch, burn a 9 now because you've seen Bruce do it?
No, that song
Okay.
is still below average. Although
Okay.
we've said this before, seeing Bruce do some of those below average
Yeah,
80s
yeah.
songs
It's a lot of
gives
fun.
you a greater appreciation. It's a lot
Yeah.
of fun, yes. But
Yeah.
I think this is one of Gene's better poppy songs.
Okay.
And
Minus the
I
seeds.
like it, minus the seeds, and I like it a hell of a lot better than Naked City.
Okay. All right.
All
Fair
righty.
enough.
Easy as it seems.
Ah,
I know
great
you
bass
like
line.
that bass.
Again, there's so much I like about this song. It's so cheesy but poppy and so different. And I love, like, how, again, out of the box this song sounds to me. The keyboard's got a keyboard solo in it. I mean, first Kiss song with a keyboard
Mhm.
solo. I love this song. I gave it a 6.2.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
This is actually probably right up there with Naked City, one of my least favorite songs on the album. While I like the bass, uh, the Stanley vocal just never connected with me.
Hmm. If it sounded like that, then I would understand. But it sounds a
That's like
little better than
that's
that.
like my off-tune Michael
Michael McDonald's
McDonald
too.
version of Wholesale. Exactly. Just I don't know. I just never
God.
really connected with this song much at all.
Hmm.
Saying that it's not bad, but I don't know. I'm gonna go with a 4.9 on this.
All right, but let me ask this question:
Yeah.
Have you ever seen them do it live? You
No,
probably
no,
have.
they never
Okay.
did this
Oh, they
live.
never did live.
No.
But I get the feeling if they did, you'd be thoroughly thawed if you heard the song live.
Well, look, it goes without saying, any deep cut that Kiss does live,
Mm.
for crying out loud, I think if they brought out flutes and did fanfare, I might get excited.
Yeah, yeah.
Forget the fact that it's probably not played with a flute. That's not the
Right.
point, you know.
I think it
It's
might be. Yeah, I
is it?
think,
I don't know
yeah, I think so.
what wind
Flute.
instrument is
Yeah.
fanfare
Great,
played
great
with.
word. Flute.
Flute. Anytime you could just introduce flute into the conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I would I be excited? Absolutely.
Mm.
But if I look just like I was excited when I saw Kiss do Two Timer on one of the cruises,
Yeah.
but look, it's a below average song to me.
Yeah.
To me, Easy as It Seems is a below average song. Barely, but it's a little bit below
Yeah.
average. So I'm gonna stick with my 4.9.
Okay.
It's no Great Expectations or Secretly Cruel. That's for sure. It's a little bit better than those.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All righty. The last Ace song on the record, Torpedo Girl. You want to go first, my friend?
What what a great bass line by Ace. The bass line and what he's countering with the guitar.
Uh-huh.
I've always loved this song, you know. I mean, it's like, let's take a dive, let's take a ride. It's kind of got, that some of that Ace monotony with his
Uh-huh.
vocal, but man, I don't know. That doesn't even matter.
Mhm.
I just love the song. It's just great. You know me, anything bass oriented, I'm gonna give it extra parents. But that being said, I gave Talk to Me a 6.3. I gave Two Sides of a Coin a 5. I'm giving this a 6.
Okay, so for you, of the three Ace songs, this one's in the middle. Do I have
In
that
the
right?
middle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Minus the man.
for me, minus the man. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, For me, this is my least favorite Ace song on the record. Not that I dislike it. Again, I
Hmm.
do everything you said with the bass. That bass line is thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah.
I saw Ace in '92 at the Limelight in New York City, and he did a medley of songs at the time. And this was one of the songs. I remember being like, "Oh,
Were you actually doing that?
yeah, I think I was." Doing all the dance. So, I was thoroughly enjoying
Yeah.
seeing Ace do this. He did on the cruise in 2018, thoroughly enjoyed it. Um, but it's probably my least favorite Ace song on the album. I'm giving it a 5.5.
5.5.
Yes, just a little
Okay.
bit above average. That brings us to the final song on the album, a Gene song, All That I Want. This is only the third Gene song on the record, right? So there's only three Gene
Mm.
songs out of 11 on the record. There's many
Hmm.
Gene songs as there are Ace songs, right? So that tells you, where the band was headed in terms of giving Ace a lot more vocals on these albums, which
Hmm.
I happen to love that they were doing that. I think it
Hmm.
adds a nice little mixture to the records. But what's your thoughts on your All That I Want?
Clearly understand why it's the last song on this record. I gave this one a 3. It's not,
Wow.
yeah, not a fan of the chorus. Kind of doesn't really lift me at all.
Mhm.
Some elements of it I think that are cool, but I think this is below average and below average by 2 points.
Okay. There you go. I think it's a perfect ending song for the album. I happen to think the whole outro part of the song where Paul starts singing like above the chorus, I happen to love that. The rest of the song, I think, is average,
To quote you, a little boring.
a little boring.
It's got that Gene, some of those Gene boring songs, I mean, just I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, I can't, but I do like the song, and I do like the ending of the song a lot, actually. It's one of my
Hmm.
favorite endings on a Kiss album, I'll even say, just that whole like last 20, 30 seconds of the song.
Mm.
So for that reason, I'm going to stick with a 5 on this one. Because I do think it's an average song. I don't think it's a bad song the way you're saying.
Hmm.
Um, It's not a great song. It's average, but I do
Mm,
like the ending of that song quite a bit. I like when Stanley
okay.
comes in and he's singing over the chorus. I like that a lot. They were doing this in concert for, I guess, the first 6 weeks or so, roughly. Don't quote me exactly, on tour. And I know they did it at the Palladium show. And this is another one where I keep every time there's like these 8mm films that come out where people like recorded segments of the concerts. I always hope somebody caught this song on
Mm,
video. I think there's one that has like a 5 second clip or a 10 second clip of them doing this song. There's another one for everybody watching and listening out there, especially my European friends. If you have some 8mm footage of Kiss doing this song in 1980, this would be high up on my list. Even though
mm,
it's not the greatest song, I'd love to visually see Kiss. I've had a lot of audio of them perform this song live, but I want to visually see what it was like
yeah.
them performing
Yeah.
this song. Probably
Yeah.
never see that, but that's something else I'd love to see one day.
Okay.
So where do our overall ratings end up on this record?
Well, my overall rating is a 68.6 and yours is a 70.7.
Okay, so very similar. I'm a little higher on the ratings than you,
Almost 2 points higher, 2.1 higher.
which is really
I
our opinion on the last song.
exactly. I saw I was going neck and neck, and I was like, well, if he gives this a three, if you would have given that a three, just for instance, I would have been 68.6. You would have been a 68.7. So
Now
I
there's
was
11
curious.
songs on the album, so
Hmm.
just do the quick math in the spreadsheet over there. What does that equal average rating for a song?
It's a 6.24 for me and a 6.43 for you.
So both of us are saying that the record is a little better than average,
Mm-hmm.
not upper echelon. Like we said, sevens and eights is where you start to become upper echelon. But I think
Mm-hmm.
we both feel like it's a solid record.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think for me, when I looked at my ratings on this, I didn't give, basically every song had a 5 or greater on this. There's no, like, as much as I don't love Naked City, I think that's the one I gave a 4.9. Um, there's no duds on this album. Yeah, I know you disagree. I
You
think
gave the
you'd say,
4.9 to easy as it seems. Naked City gave a five.
oh, okay, is that what it
So
is?
it's
Okay,
very
right,
close.
right, all right. Sorry, I mixed that up. But there's no duds on this album. There's no song that I'm like, I gotta skip this. I can never listen to this
I
again.
think the last song's a dud, but
Yeah, I know you do.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
surprised. I never knew that about you. So
yeah,
now. Have
yeah.
you ever listened to the Gene demo of this, which is much more like acoustic and
I think I have. Was that on his
it's on his the vault? Yeah,
yeah.
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 But you probably don't remember it that well, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of I'm hearing it in my head a bit,
Okay.
Might
Did you
like that
like
better.
that version better?
Yeah, I might like that better,
Okay.
honestly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious what you thought
Yeah.
about that. So I know before you had mentioned that well, we had brought up the fact that in recent times, I think the last couple of weeks, Paul Stanley did an interview and somebody was asking him what were his least favorite Kiss albums. And I think we were both surprised, and one of them wasn't a surprise at all, it was The Elder. And then the
Mm,
other one he had mentioned was Unmasked. And I think both of you and I were surprised, like, wait, Unmasked? We both figured he would mention Carnival of Souls as opposed to
yeah.
Unmasked. I guess that surprised you, right? Just hearing him say that in the
Oh
interview.
yeah. Yeah, because I never heard him talk fondly about Carnival Souls and like, oh, it was like, I didn't really want to write lyrics like that and blah blah blah. I was like hands were forced. Where Unmasked, it wasn't that,
Right,
you know.
right. Yep,
So,
no, agreed. Well, but what's interesting, and so we just went through the songs and we did our review
mm,
song by song. What I decided to do beforehand is just go back to the book Kiss Behind the Mask, the official authorized biography, which came out at this point. I can't believe it's 20 years since this book came out. I'm sure you remember it. I can't. But you have the book Behind the Mask, I think, as well.
yes.
And in it, they go through album by album and they give their reviews. So I thought it
Mm-hmm.
would just be interesting based on that recent Stanley interview and based on just the comments that we just made about the albums to go back and kind of take a look at this. Again, this book came out over 20 years ago now. So here's Paul Stanley
And opinions
about
can change over 20 days, So
it
let's just
definitely
let
can. You said that at the top, what you were ranking something today as a 10 might be an 8 tomorrow,
right.
but I thought this is interesting to listen to somebody's the feedback from Paul, Gene, and Ace about Unmasked. So here's what Paul Stanley had to say 20, almost 21 years ago. Unmasked, I would give that 1 star. I'm like, wow, okay, I didn't
Mm,
expect that. A song like Tomorrow is really great. You're right, Paul, it is. You should have played the damn song live. But I think Unmasked is a pretty crappy album. It's wimpy. I'm like, wow, okay. I didn't
Mm.
remember having read that 20 years ago. But clearly, like you were saying, opinions could change. But apparently, in Paul's case, his opinion hasn't changed. He really, apparently, for the last 20 years,
Well, it is a wimpy record. Let's face facts. From a sonic standpoint, there's nothing at all ballsy on this record.
that
So
is
that's not
definitely true.
an a stretch, that comment.
No, but I was surprised to see that Paul said he would give it 1 star. I figured, especially with the
A little
fact that he's got
harsh.
a little harsh. Yeah, I was a little
Yeah.
surprised. By comparison, here's Gene, and this doesn't surprise me. Gene Simmons said, 1 star. I think the group and album is always more than just songs. It's direction and attitude. Let me see. By this point, Peter Criss was in the twilight zone. He started to have problems very early on. By Unmasked, it got so bad he was not on the album at all. There's not a single track on the album with Peter Criss. 1 star. That to me doesn't surprise me to hear Gene say that. First off, like we just said, Gene only has 3 songs on the album, and I'm not surprised to hear Gene give this. Gene was never one to like the pop albums from Kiss. Does it surprise you to hear Gene gave 1 star?
Doesn't surprise the dig of Peter Chris because ever, but
Exactly.
no, I guess not. I guess that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me any more than the Paul. Well, right, than the Paul one. The
The
Paul
Paul one
was,
surprises me. Gene
yeah.
doesn't surprise me. So, and then they got Ace Frehley also to comment on it. So here's Ace's comments. I thought my songs were good. I don't think Paul and Gene were that thrilled with the stuff that they did or the production of it. You have to realize at this point in time, the band was just going through a transition. But, then he goes on, talks about some of the album. He goes, then I'd give the album 3.5 stars. I
Wow.
was like, wow, okay. Ace obviously
Mm.
thinks. Now, I wonder if that's because obviously Ace was much more involved in the songwriting and even singing, 3 songs on the album compared to earlier albums where he wasn't singing any of them. But
Yeah.
I would have thought Paul would give it, 2 or 3 stars just because, Paul's front and center on the singles and all. Ace giving it 3.5 stars. Does that surprise you?
Yes, definitely.
Do you
Is he
agree?
giving? But my thing is he giving his songs 3.5 stars, or is he giving the record 3.5 stars? I
Well, I
think Ace
mean,
is giving his songs 3.5 stars. Quite honestly.
yeah, and he says that he thinks he had some good songs on the album.
Mm, yeah.
And he goes on to say, they go song by song. And he's like, oh, I recently listened to Torpedo Girl. Well, it's a hilarious song. And he's like, oh, I think Two Sides of the Coin is a fun song. So he definitely looked back fondly on his own songs, at least 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of wanted to make sure we discussed that also because it surprised me a little bit that, apparently I didn't realize this. For over 20 years now, Paul has a strong dislike for this album.
I didn't realize that either, and I don't remember. Yeah, I mean, I read the book once, and
Right.
obviously a long time ago. So yeah, it's good that you brought that into the fold here.
Yeah, yeah. So it makes me kind of go back and say, maybe because when he did that recent interview, I was like, no, there's no way. His answer should have been The Elder and Carnival of Souls.
Mm,
So I'd love to ask Paul at this point, does he actually like Unmasked less than Carnival of Souls? Because
right,
I would
right.
never have thought that Paul would feel like that. But based on his recent interview and based on these comments in the book 20 years ago, that might be the case.
Yeah, yeah. That's the way it seems.
Yeah.
As easy as it seems, that's the way it
Ah, I
seems.
see. I see what you
Uh,
did there. I see what you
yeah.
did there. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Now we mentioned before, obviously the singles and Shandy being the main single of the album. What were your thoughts on the video?
Of Shandy.
Yeah,
I'm trying to
obviously it's
remember that.
just like a
Is that
performance type thing, and then they're in the
they're
in the
walking through they're walking through, and at the
Paul
end you
starts
see
off,
the
he's like walking down a hallway playing
right,
guitar,
right, yeah,
and then
yeah,
they're on stage a little bit, and then at the
yeah,
end, there's a photographer going to take their picture, and they turn around, they're all wearing the makeup,
right, right, yeah, yeah. It was cool.
Yeah,
It was fun. It was a
yeah,
fun video.
yeah, I
I mean,
agree.
pre MTV, we gotta remember too. You know,
Absolutely.
not a
Absolutely.
pure performance video like I Was Made for Loving You is none of that kind of thing. So
Right.
that's what makes it kind of cool. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. To me, it's kind of watching that video and knowing that that was the very last thing that Peter Criss ever did with the band until he came back in '95. He did obviously he did MTV Unplugged. And before that, he performed with them in Los Angeles on their
Yeah.
Unplugged thing. But that was Peter's last involvement with the band for 15 years, basically. And
Right.
it's
Right.
kind of sad a little bit to watch. And I've read stories where Peter, supposedly was, like hysterical crying in the dressing room, taking off the makeup, knowing like that this was it.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to watch it from that point of view. To me, it's a good video for the album. It plays on the whole Unmasked thing with them turning around and still wearing the makeup while wearing their dress clothes,
Hmm.
the street clothes rather. It's a fun video.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember also going back to 1980, they only did one show in America for the entire tour, which is the only album they never toured America for. And I won't count the one show as tour in America, right? And my parents tried to get me tickets for that show at the Palladium, which was Eric Carr's first show, obviously, with them. And the show sold out. And when my parents told me, little, 9, almost 10-year-old me was crying, how could you not get me tickets? And it's still like, I think back to it, I'm like, man, I could have seen Eric's first show. And as it turned out, his last show with Kiss. I never got to see Eric Carr with makeup. And it's always like, damn, if only my parents had, got through on the phone or whatever, however they were trying. And I appreciate them trying. I'm not trying to say I
Hmm.
held any ill will towards them not getting me tickets, but it's kind of weird that here it is. I started with that top 40 songs in America
Hmm.
and talking about,
Hmm.
and then they go down that road of doing a pop album that would gear towards the popular music on American radio. The album doesn't do great. The lead single doesn't do great. And they don't even tour in the country. It's
Right.
just,
Right.
it's so crazy to kind of think about like how they went down that road instead of doing the Blizzard of Oz, the AC/DC, the Iron Maiden road that we were talking about earlier. And then they don't even tour in the country where that type of music was popular.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Really, really, really bizarre to me.
Hmm.
I understand that the audience wasn't there, but it's just such a bizarre time for the band there. Now, what do you think
Hmm.
of the I'll say the costumes, the outfits, whatever, the capes and all of that? It's obviously an extension of the Dynasty tour, but what do you think of those outfits?
Um, I'm always going to prefer the harder edged looking and
Yep.
then more hindsight 50/50 now. At the time I thought it was the coolest thing.
Mhm.
But I mean, yeah, an extension from the Dynasty outfits, you know, not my favorite era, you
Mhm.
know, not my
Mhm.
favorite era. That's what I'll say by
It,
far.
it's funny because I agree with you. I mean, the costumes, they don't bother me, but I don't love them. I much
Yeah.
prefer, stuff like the Love Gun time period and even
Hmm.
Destroyer, things like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I have to say, and you remember this, when I was a kid, I had the dungaree jacket. And do you remember what I had painted on the back of the
Oh, of
dungaree
course.
jacket? Right. It was the
Yeah.
cover of People magazine. I
Hmm.
happen to love that photo shoot. That photo shoot is one of my all-time favorite Kiss photo shoots of all time. Obviously, I loved Eric Carr and the band. And, obviously Eric didn't record the album, but he toured with them on the album, and that was the first time, Kiss changed a member and fans are getting to see somebody new, different makeup and all of that.
Hmm.
I love that photo shoot. I still have that jacket to this day.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
got it's torn up on the shoulder and whatever, but I won't throw it away. I happen to love that photo shoot, but I agree. The costumes are they're good. They're good for what they were, and they were going for superhero comic book, like we were talking about with the album
Hmm.
cover. But I prefer the Love Gun costumes probably over these.
Yeah. It's one thing for a photo shoot, and then one thing, and you see them live, and Gene's walking around doing his menacing thing, and it's just not as convincing anymore. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Yep.
So it's
Yep.
kind of that.
Agreed. But I love the tour, and we've got some bootlegs, and we've had that Inner Sanctum slash
Hmm.
1980 bootleg for decades, and I love the way, and I'll always say this, I love the way Paul was singing Detroit Rock City on that tour. I love how they did Strutter and Cold Gin kind of blended together, one right into the other. Um, I always hated the way Paul introduced the song Shanty. This song is about a girl whose name begins with an S and ends with an I. I'm like, what the
Yeah.
hell? Could that be maybe the worst introduction of any Kiss
Yeah.
song ever in concert? But I do wish that Kiss had toured America for the Unmasked tour. It's the only tour besides Creatures, I guess. I didn't see Creatures either, but those are the two tours that since 1979, 1979
79.
that I missed. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else about Unmasked that you think we should bring up?
Um, I could understand why a lot of fans don't like it. That's the one thing I will say. But I've said it for so long. I'm a huge fan of pop music, always have.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why I've kind of have embraced this in the lineage of Kiss records.
Yeah, no, I,
So,
I agree. I've totally embraced it. And I started this, and I'll even end it, I guess, in some degree. I look back at 1980. Obviously, we were kids, but I look
hmm
back on it very fondly. And this album plays a
absolutely.
part of that. My all-time favorite movie, Empire Strikes Back, came out in 1980.
hmm hmm
I think my all-time favorite sports event of all time, America beating Russia in the Olympics, that was obviously 1980. I've watched the movie Miracle 1,000 times. I love that whole story. 1980 is just a fun year all
hmm
around.
hmm
And this album is fun,
hmm
and it
Yeah.
brings me back to being a kid, and it brings me back to being in the car with my parents and hearing some kid in his house blasting talk to me in his
Yeah.
house. And it's a fun time. It was an innocent time. No, this album is not as good as some of those hard rock albums, Back in Black and Blizzard of Oz, and even, probably not even as good as like the first Iron Maiden album or Heaven and Hell from Black Sabbath. But it's a fun record, and it brings me back to that time as a child and having fun. And
hmm
I'll never apologize for that ever.
Absolutely. I
And
agree with you.
a song like Tomorrow, to me, it could have been up there on the charts with a song like Call Me or Magic or Crazy Little Thing for Love. They had the right idea. I don't know if it was just not uh, poor execution on the record label. I don't know. And I wonder if there was a huge hit from this album, how different things would have been for Kiss. Would they have not done The Elder? Would they have not done Creatures of the Night? We'll obviously never know. But had they had pop success with this, I wonder how things would have been different.
That being said, I'm glad the course that it took.
Me too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Meaning those
100%.
records after.
Agreed. Agreed
Yeah.
100%. Although I will say this, I will listen to Unmasked every day of the week before I listen to The Elder.
Fair point. Fair point.
So we look forward to hearing everybody else's thoughts on the record. We'd love to hear your ratings,
hmm
0 to 11 on the 0 to 10 on the 11 songs on the record. I'm curious what people think about the three Ace songs. Right? We were talking before about which ones of
hmm
ours first, second, third. The Ace to me is strong on this record. Three very good songs. I'm curious to hear what people think about those. And you know what? You would say Paul's probably the highlight of the album. It sounds like I think we both would, right?
Oh yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
curious what other people think. Is it Paul, Ace, or Gene? Which songs are the highlights of the album for you?
hmm hmm
Curious to hear what people say about that. And do you think that these songs could have fit on a chart in 1980 with some of those other songs? Just some thoughts. We look forward to seeing those reviews, those comments.
Absolutely.
And I think that is it.
This is it. The hell was that? Is
Oh
that your
man.
flute solo?
Yeah, it's my flute solo in the middle of the song. Alrighty. Well, on that
Mhm.
note, again, my friend and everybody watching, listening, Happy New Year. We will be doing this again in 2024, I'm quite sure. But until then, we leave you with the
What are we
first of the
leaving with?
year, the double Ringo.
Okay,
We
we're
got to
doing
go with
double
the
Ringo.
classic. I can see
Okay.
you like, which one? You're like moving your fingers, like which one?
I got them set up on my lap. I'm like, am I going up like this?
I got to come
Yeah.
up with a third
I have
one
the
just
weird hand thing. Yeah.
yes, but I got to come up
Yeah.
with a third one. I don't know, maybe
Yeah.
like the what was this? The Mork and Mindy,
Yeah. Yeah.
Anu
I can't
Nanu,
do I can't
Shazbot.
yeah, I can't do that. You'll have to do that
Which Mork
solo.
and Mindy was probably popular around 1980 as
It
well, I would
was.
think.
Hmm
So maybe I should have said we're going to end with the
Yeah.
Mork and Mindy. It would have been more appropriate timeline.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's a wrap, everybody. Thank you for watching as always, and we'll see you guys soon.
See you soon.
All right, bye. Alrighty, there you have it. We'd like to hear your thoughts and comments. Do you think Kiss went the wrong route doing a pop album? Or do you think they should have gone with something a little bit heavier, such as AC/DC, Ozzy Osbourne, and so many other great albums that came out in 1980? We'd also love to hear your thoughts and see your reviews and your ratings of each of the songs on the album. We look forward to seeing that for sure. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You should also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.